Hi friends, welcome back. My name is Addie Gunnan of Well Loved Clothing, and we're in a new space. You have never seen it before, and I'm so excited to show it to you. This is my Well Loved studio. It is such a cute little spot that's just full of my creativity, my thought processes, my projects, crafts, anything that's just really inspiring and fun is gonna come out of this place. So this is actually the shed in our backyard, so I'm gonna give you a little tour in just a second. But before we get to the tour, I'm sure you already know from the title of this video, but if you don't, my sewing machine is back in action, and I am so excited because we are going to be doing a thrift flip today. It has been so long. So my thrift flips are a series that I used to do monthly. I'm trying to get back into it monthly. It's just been so busy recently that I haven't had the time to just sit down and sew. But it's a series that I do where I take thrifted clothing that's not so cute or some pieces from my closet that need some updating, and I transform them into some really cute sustainable pieces. So this is my new workspace. I'm really excited to get back on my sewing machine, and I have some really fun, super colorful, kind of crazy pieces that we're gonna go after. So let's go on a little tour and then jump into the first piece that we're gonna flip today. Baby, you're the one for me. Baby, you are meant for me. I'm madly in love with you. Baby, you're the one for me. Baby, you are meant for me. In love with you. Baby, you're the one for me. So we are back at our little sewing station, and I am focusing on really colorful, fun, kind of psychedelic pieces today. So the first piece that we are doing is this gorgeous dress. So I cannot get over the pattern on this dress. It is this beautiful orange, pink, red, navy, very 70s kind of psychedelic print on it. So I of course loved this one for the fabric, and I was just hit with so many ideas when I first got this. And it's just made so well, and the fabric is really stretchy, almost like a bathing suit material. But as you can probably see, it's just not super flattering. It's a little bit more of like an older lady dress, and I want it to be like a very cute mod fun piece. So my idea for this dress is to kind of make this sort of look. So go pretty mod with it. I'm not doing a ton of changes, but I wanted to start somewhere a little bit easier. So it's got the short sleeve, the shorter kind of hemline, very 60s, but basically the dress structure is gonna stay sort of the same. And so we're just gonna modify this one a little bit and make it super cute, super wearable. You really don't have to change a ton of stuff on thrift flips in order for it to be this magical piece that you'll wear all of the time. A lot of times for me, it's just like taking a hem up 2 inches, and that's the whole goal of these, is to use what you own, wear what you own, and make it so cute. So we are going to go after that adorable little mod 60s style dress with this amazing pattern right here. So let's get sewing. So first things first, for every project we have to get our thread color. So I pick a few and just try to match the thread that's already on the piece as best I can, because if you match it, it's going to look more like it was supposed to be that way. And I get my little bobbin off of the cutest tiny bobbin rack. Now that we're all set up, I can start marking all of the spots that I want to modify. So here I'm putting a pin where I want my cap sleeve to end, and then doing the same thing with the skirt hem. Once those are marked, I can lay it flat as possible and use my handy dandy rotary tool to chop the edge of that sleeve. I'm going to chop about a 1/2 inch below where I want the sleeve to end, because we're going to hem that up. Then folding it over and matching my cut on the other side. And with the sleeves done, I can move on to the hem. So I'm laying this as flat as possible, giving it a couple more pat downs because I don't want any wrinkles while doing this, and then cutting about 1 inch below where that pin is, and use the little fold in half process to match the edges. Once I had those cut, I tried it on just to see what it would look like with the new hem and the sleeves, and I ended up wanting to cut the sleeves a little shorter, so I measured those out and cut them off, and then began the process of doing the hems. Okay, so turns out that this is actually, let me see what percent it was. It's a lot of spandex and polyester. So like I said earlier, it's kind of like bathing suit material. Look here, I'll just show you. It's super stretchy and very thick. You can kind of see the consistency in here. But on the edges of it, I'm getting really close here, you can kind of see that like it's not really gonna fray. That's not really what this fabric does. So I might actually just leave it raw for now and then just finish out some of the little pieces, like the little stitches that are inside of it need to be finished off. It almost gives it that like lettuce hem also if you stretch it a whole bunch, which I think is super cute, kind of modernizes it a little bit, gives a little flair. So this might be a lot easier than I thought, but we have a couple more things to do, so let's do it. So like I said, I needed to finish off the edges of the hem where the other seams met so that they wouldn't fray and the whole thing fall apart. And so after I get those done, I'm laying it flat so I can do the darts on the back. So you can see here where the darts already are, and since they're here, it's gonna be pretty easy to take them in. So in order to do that, we're gonna flip it inside out and lay it flat again, and then we're gonna pin about an inch from the dart that's already there because I wanna take it in 4 inches. So that's gonna be 2 inches on either side. And since it's folded, that's 1 inch pinning. A little confusing, but it works. The darts are now all pinned up the way I want them to be, so I'm taking it to my machine and sewing one long stitch from the top of the dart to the bottom. And once I have those stitches sewn, then I can try it on because it is completely done! Baby, you're the one for me. Baby, you are meant for me. I'm madly in love with you. Oh my goodness, I am so in love with how this turned out. I did not expect it to like really change the whole feel of the piece, but the other piece kind of felt like a mom going to like a middle school graduation or something, like very cute, very posh. So I kind of like made it younger and a little bit more like cutesy, actual 20-year-old trendy. So cute, and the length, I mean, can we get over this cute little mod number? So I am so excited to style this piece up, and I am so excited to continue doing thrift flips. So let's keep going. We're back on the sewing train. On to the next piece. So the next piece that I want to go after is a little less mod but still very colorful. So I'm going after this kind of set. I just have been loving the little bra top and shorts matching thing. I love it with a button down open over the top of it. Very summery, very fun. So for this kind of set, I found the most colorful pants a while ago. You may have seen these in a thrift haul that I did, and I have worn them like once or twice, but they're just a little bit big for me and I don't love the flowiness. But I have some ideas for this. So you can kind of see they're just super colorful, super fun. I love that they're almost an abstract plaid, but they are a little bit big for me. That waist doesn't really fit. I've had to pin it if I wear it before. But I love the smocked waist on this, and I think it'll be really easy to transform these into a little bra top and shorts. So my thoughts for this is that we're going to keep this as the pants, maybe bring the waistline down and in a little bit, and then use the excess fabric on the bottom to make that almost shirred kind of bra top. So I'm super excited about this one too, and I can't wait to get into it. So let's just start. Baby, you're the one for me. The first things first for this flip, I want to lay it flat and I want to cut off that waistband because I know that it is just too far from the crotch as I want it to be, and I think I'm going to create a completely new waistband. So once I get that off, I'm using another pair of shorts that I want these to be shaped like and laying them against the crotch line to make sure that it lines up and will fit correctly. And woohoo, it's the exact size that I need them to be. So I'm going to cut out these pockets because I had to cut off the top of them anyway when I took off the waistband, so they just won't work. So I am sewing them closed, then cutting off the excess fabric, and then trying on the pants to see if they have the correct rise once I put an elastic waist in them, and having myself a little dance party, because why not? So I'm not cutting off the legs yet because I want as much fabric as possible for the bra top, so I'm going to do the waist on the pants first so I can hem them later. So I'm taking them to the ironing board, yes, still proud of the ironing board, and folding over about 1.5 inches because my elastic is 1 inch thick, so I'll need a little bit of wiggle room to get it through. Making a casing for that elastic, and ironing it down flat so it will sew easily. I also want this waistband to have a 1/2 inch ruffle across the top, and so I am marking a 1/2 inch from the top and then 1 inch from there so that I can sew 2 seams around to make the casing so it'll ruffle the top of the waistband. You'll see what I mean in a minute. So once it's all marked and pinned, I'm taking the waistband to my machine and sewing the top seam a 1/2 inch from the top and the second seam 1.5 inches from the top to make the casing for my elastic. I make sure to leave about a 2-inch space so I can put my elastic through the waistband and sew it down later. With those seams done, I can take the elastic and measure around my waist what size it needs to be. So once I have that measurement, I can start getting my safety pin and start scrunching it through the waistband, which is always the longest part of these projects, but so worth it. So once I have that scrunched all the way through, I'm going to sew my 2 pieces of elastic together and then sew the seam down that I left open earlier. And now we can do the leg opening. So I put them on to mark where that's going to be and cut off the excess fabric, leaving about 1 inch to do the hem on the bottom. And of course folded them over to match up the hems and started to sew the edge with a zigzag stitch to make sure that it doesn't fray. I took it to the ironing board to then iron up about a 1/2 inch to make the hem on this shorts and then sew down that piece after pinning it. Okay, so the adorable little elastic waist shorts are done and they are so dang cute, but we are going to move on to the top now, and I have a couple of ideas for how I'm thinking to do it, but I think I want the sides to look similar to this, so let's just get into it. So first things first, I have to take apart all these pieces. So I'm taking the hem off the bottom of the pants, and then I'm going to cut up the sides just to have a flat piece of fabric to work from. And once I get that, I just start taking some measurements to see what the best use of this fabric is going to be. So I want to make a little bra kind of tube top, and so I'm going to cut these to actually be straight edges because right now they're triangles from the pant legs, and they end up being the exact length that I wanted from top to bottom for this shirt. So this took a lot of thought to get to the point where I figured it would be like a very good finished top, and so I figured it out this way where I was going to make essentially a lined top with the 2 leg pieces that were going to then be a tube that I would put elastic in to make a little ruffled top. So we're starting by sewing all of the top edges of the fabric together, then cutting one in half because it's going to be a tie back shirt, so we have to have the gap in it. So once all of those pieces are made, I want to connect them first so that my hem isn't wonky with a bunch of different stitches hanging out of it, and so I'm going to connect the 2 side pieces to the front middle piece, pinning both of those pieces down and then taking it to my machine, sewing that close, and then closing off the long stitch that will end up being across the bottom of this top. So this beautiful tube of fabric is going to be the main portion of the shirt. And so now I need to place my elastic so it will do the same thing as the pants with the ruffles in it. So I'm placing the elastic a 1/2 inch from the top and the bottom of this shirt, and this elastic is actually a 1/2 inch thick, and so marking 1 inch from the top and a 1/2 inch from the top, I know that my casing will be the second 1/2 inch portion. So once I have all of those pinned out and marked out, I'm taking it to my machine and sewing 4 long stitches across the whole tube. Here you can see the 2 stitches for the elastic casing, so hopefully it makes more sense now. So I'm taking my measuring tape and measuring across the back. I'm not touching in the back because I want it to be a tie back top, and so this is going to be for the elastic that goes across the front. So once I have those 2 measurements, I'm subtracting about 4 inches from both because that's how scrunchy I want the top to be, and cutting those pieces and using my littlest of safety pins to scrunch these pieces through those casing that I made on the front. Once the safety pin comes out the other side, I am pinning it to the actual fabric because I'm not going to be connecting the elastics to each other. So here's a little test mock-up of the idea, and once I had both pieces through, I sewed the elastic to the edge, and then I had to make facing for these raw edges on the sides. So I took an extra piece of fabric and cut 2 2-inch strips, and then cut 4 1-inch strips that are going to be the tie back for this top. Once I sewed down one side of the strap strips, I took my special little tool and flipped them inside out so that they would be a really finished tie back strap. So now we can do the facing. So I'm laying the 2 straps where the elastic meets the edge of the fabric so that the elastic looks like it's the tie back, and then putting the facing piece over the front of that, pinning all of that down, and then sewing those flat, then folded those facing pieces back and sewed them down, and once that was done, I could do the straps. So I used the hem of the pants that I cut off earlier to be the strap, and it was the perfect length, and so all I had to do was sew it to the front and the back, and this amazingly fun piece is done!
I'm in love with you. Baby, you're the one for me. Baby, you are meant for me. I'm in love with you. Baby, one for me.
Oh my gosh, this is just not even okay how cute this is. It feels so me with the yellow and the orange, and it's a little bit of like a prairie poof in this shirt, and I was worried that it was going to be like a little saggy, too poofy, but the amount of fabric was. Shorts are the perfect little flowy short. I will wear these with a ton of things, this with a ton of stuff, and best part is this adorable little tie back. It's just the cutest little piece. So I am absolutely in love with this one. It's the perfect summer set, and you can bet I will be wearing this all summer long. So let's keep this crazy, psychedelic, fun patterned thrift flip going and move on to the next piece. Okay, you can probably hear my neighbor mowing his lawn because his yard is right on the other side of this wall, but that is not going to stop us from doing some thrift flips. So I have my final piece for you today, and it is just plain incredible already. So I cannot wait to see what we can do with this piece. But it is just this gorgeous patterned button down, and it's extremely oversized, so it's almost like a dress on me, and I like the idea of making it into a dress, but I have a lot of other plans. But as you can see, the sleeves are too long and the shoulder drop is just like way too drastic, and so it looks like it doesn't fit me instead of looking like cute oversized, because it doesn't fit me. But the colors and pattern on this are just so 60s, 70s, almost wallpaper mod. So of course I snagged it for the fabric. I don't completely know exactly which direction I want to go. These are kind of the two directions that I'm thinking of. So either like a really pretty dress that's just not 60s or 70s at all, to just take it sort of out of that and just be a very cool pattern, or to make a very cute little skirt and shirt set, kind of like this one. So I know I already made a set in this video, but that was sort of like bra top shorts, and so to me like skirt and shirt seems different. I also think I want to keep the collar on it. So I think we're just gonna kind of get into it and let the piece speak to me. So we're gonna get started and thrift flip our last piece for today.
Baby, you're the one for me. Baby, you are meant for me.
Okay, so we're starting out by measuring where I need this hem of the shirt and top of the skirt to be, because I need to make sure that the skirt's long enough but the top is also long enough. So I'm measuring that out, and then I am pinning where I need that to go, laying it flat and making sure it's all buttoned up, and then measuring it one more time just to be sure, and then cutting off that center piece so that the skirt is separated from the top. I'm then cutting off the sleeves, which I will reattach later in a very cute way, and then using a dress that I like the shape of the bodice for to lay it on top and basically act as a pattern. So I'm cutting about an inch away from this edge, so I'll have enough for a seam. And then when I have one cut, I am folding it over to make sure they match on both sides and cutting that edge off, flipping it inside out so it's face to face, and then pinning the two side seams together, sewing them down, cutting off any excess, and then doing a zigzag stitch to close off that seam so it won't fray. And now I can move on to the sleeves. So I'm cutting off the excess fabric that was left over from cutting them off the bodice. And I want to make these puff sleeves, so I'm laying the bodice piece flat and then marking where on the sleeve I want that puff to start. I really want it to be mainly on the shoulder because we don't have a ton of excess fabric, and so I'm just marking that with a pin on the front and the back on both sleeves. We're going to gather the top of these sleeves, and so I like to use the long stitch. So change your stitch to a very long one, lower the tension, and do one long stitch wherever you want that gather to be. I like to tie one side into a knot so that I don't lose my thread once I gather. So I'm tucking my sleeve into the hole and making sure that it's face to face so that I can gather it. So I'm going to start by pinning at the armpit seam of the sleeve and the shirt so that the whole sleeve will match up. So once that's pinned down, I can start to pin around the whole thing, pinning all the flat pieces down first, and then pulling the end of the thread to gather that ruffle at the top of the sleeve. And once you have it gathered to where it's flat against the fabric, then you can pin horizontally, or whatever way this looks like to you. You can pin it down that way. Repeat that gathering process and pinning process on both sleeves, and then take it to your machine and sew both of those seams down. To make this a beautifully flowy puffy sleeve, I am going to be cutting off the cuff on the bottom and putting in an elastic band around the wrist. So I'm cutting that piece off and then sewing a zigzag stitch, folding it up about 3/4 of an inch and pinning and ironing that down to make the casing for the elastic, sewing that down and then completely forgetting to show the elastic portion because it was really difficult. So moving on to the skirt. So taking the bottom portion from when we cut the shirt earlier, I'm measuring the top because I want to take out a couple of the inches from the waistband, and so I took maybe 4 out of each side, 8 total. Once all the cuts were made, I took it to my machine to sew down the 2 new sides of the skirt, zigzagged hemmed the insides of those, and then also zigzagged hemmed the top of the skirt that's going to be the new waistband, and then folded that over about a 1/2 inch because we're going to use our 1/2 inch elastic again to make a casing for that. Sewed that down with a straight stitch, and then put the elastic through the waistband with my safety pin, and once that came out the other side, I sewed the elastic pieces to each other, sewed that opening down, and then this skirt was done, and then I hemmed the shirt the same way, and it is all done, and look how cute!
The way you kiss goodnight. Baby, you're the one for me. Baby, you are meant for me. I'm madly in love with you. Baby, you're the one for me. Baby, you are meant for me. I'm madly in love with you. Baby, you're the one for me.
I don't know what to even say about this. This is like my dream set with the button down and the puff and the skirt and the pattern and the cute. I cannot believe I just made this. I'm so glad that I went with this because I'll wear this skirt with a ton of stuff. I'll wear this top under things, over things, open like a little jacket. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for watching today. Thank you for thrift flipping with me for the first time in so long. I am so glad to be back doing thrift flips. This might be my favorite. I don't know, they're all really cute. Tell me your favorite in the comments below and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you next week. You are well loved. Bye.
Baby, you are meant for me.